Hello, welcome to the Winners Find a Way Show. I am your host, Trent Clark, serial entrepreneur, international speaker, longtime coach in professional baseball coaching in 3 World Series, and thrilled to be with you here today. I am also the new CEO of Athletic Influencer Marketing, AIM, an NIL education community, and super excited about that. We'll come back to that in a little bit. It has been a busy couple months and weeks of travel and summer, and school is back, and I'm excited about that and thrilled that we're moving forward with another school year as we get going. Just thrilled to welcome all the people that are involved in the NIL space, who are having fun with it, enjoying it, learning entrepreneurship, getting educated. And I know a lot of entrepreneurial friends are happy to give back to that community and develop people. And this is a great opportunity to marry those two together. So it is my 2 biggest passions, right? Athletics and entrepreneurship. So excited to be a part of AIM and looking forward to the journey. Got some great team members, super excited about them, and Creativa and Melissa Hughes and David Gregory and all sorts of good people that we're going to find along the way, as well as great clients that are coming in. So exciting times. Today, we are going to talk about something that has been just near and dear on my heart, which is, as you know, the show is based on winners when shown data that you're losing. Find a way to win. That's what winners do. They find a way to win under any circumstance. So, as today, I want to talk about one of those glaring things that actually shows up when we don't win and what's keeping us from winning. And that's a big factor. What are the biggest factors of us not winning, and how can I be better personally? So let's start with a couple key things. First of all, there's a lot of different ways to win, and you can hear all sorts of motivational podcasts on that. And there's all sorts of good stuff out there. So check it out. It's awesome. YouTube, you can just YouTube the snot out of all sorts of motivational things. They're exciting and fun. I YouTube something today. I loved watching John Teffer, who is most famous for his bar show on, I think it's on, I don't even remember the channel it's on, but he was having a motivational talk and just talking about, taking ownership in our failure. Like, first of all, everything changes with us. I mean, that's the only thing that changes. We don't get to control all the external factors. So what's really come up in a couple talks about teams, about working with groups, has been this challenge of, how do I get a good team? How do I create that environment where it's a good team and we're progressing and we're driving? We have all sorts of tools for that at Leadershipity. One of the biggest things about having a great team is something that kind of hit me when Bill Belichick said it with the New England Patriots. And he said, I know I have a good team when everyone on my team knows what to do and they're doing it. So let's break that down. Like, they know what to do, they know their role, they know their responsibilities. That has clarity around that. And it's very evident. This is the clarity around what I need to do to contribute here at this organization. So that's a great start. Many organizations I go into do not have that information. They do not have that set well. They are not doing that each and every time well. And so when we look at that, let's talk about the next part of that, which is, okay, they know their job. Okay, so let's say we do define the roles and responsibilities and they're doing it. Who comes in behind to manage and assure and coach and develop and mentor and guide? Who does that in your organization for the individuals? Do you have a system set up to help individuals develop? Are you actually helping them not only not know their job, but actually do it to the best of their ability? Everyone will only be monitored in the position they're in, and they'll be judged on that position. So when we look at promoting people and that, we may see some characteristics that we like that'll help at the next level, all those things. But at the end of the day, if there's not productivity and success at the level that they're at, it's unlikely they get promoted. The person who finishes last in the race doesn't get to the gold medal round. That's just not how it works. Like, you didn't do well enough in this race to make it to the next round. If I am the worst district manager in Starbucks, they're not likely to consider me as for the next regional job. That's just not going to happen. So I've got to do my job very well right where I'm sitting. And so that guidance from those people who help you along the way becomes so important. So as we looked at these teams, we're talking about that winning behavior, but I want to stop and pause today, Friday, going into the big Labor Day weekend, some time to reflect, is the losing behavior. What does that look like? The lack of winning, right? Like, how does this affect other people on our team? Well, I think there's 4 really critical losing behaviors that show up when when shown data that they are losing. So we have seen the data and now we are losing. Losing behavior takes over in one of 4 ways. First, we start making excuses. And that is not taking ownership, right? And I will use the example of I really did these first 2 losing behaviors really well once upon a time. That first behavior of making excuses, and the second behavior was blaming others, blaming something, right? Blaming people, blaming equipment, blaming the conditions. I mean, you name it, I had something to blame. So I'm going to take you back here for a minute to my youth amateur tennis career, which was formidable. I was a pretty decent player, probably one of the best players in my county, and for a couple counties for that matter. And I started very late as a tennis player. I enjoyed the game, loved it. My girlfriend, now wife, played, so I was interested in getting better and enjoying the game together. So that was really important to me. I love the competition aspect. And besides wrestling at a young age, this was really my first indoctrination as a young man or as a teenager in an individual sport. I was not a swimmer. I was not a wrestler anymore. I was not a bowler. I didn't compete individually very often. I played all these team sports, right? I played hockey. I played baseball. I played basketball. I played football. So there were days where I felt like, oh, hey, I had a pretty good day. I scored 3 touchdowns. I'm a good football player. We lost by 2 touchdowns, but I did my job. Didn't feel too bad about that. Didn't like losing ever, but some solace in that. So, what happened when I became the individual tennis player and I start playing in this USTA circuit of top junior players all around the state and then into the region and some national exposure? Man, I saw players that I had no idea were so much better than me. I mean, it was significantly the level and quality of play that was going on that I did not have in my game. I was not exposed to it in my smaller town. And I just was probably prepping for that someday, but clearly I was losing confidence rapidly because these players that were I was playing had really put in, as we talk about confidence, we talk about prep and reps. They were very well prepared. They'd been prepared for a long time and they had just repetition after repetition after repetition, making them much more consistent than I was. So I would get into matches with better players that had more experience than I, and I could feel my confidence leaving as I struggled to compete. I was competing on athleticism only, primarily running down balls, staying in the match, strategic, really using the things that I could really control, using the elements for me, using the heat in my favor, using the wind to my favor, all these things that I was taking every ounce of advantage to just stay competitive. And even then, when it got to a certain level of player in my state, in my region, I just simply wasn't competing well. So I was frustrated. I was hating, playing against these top players, getting to a certain round of seeing one of them early or a draw where I saw them before the 16s or the quarterfinals because I wasn't going to likely get past that match to go to that next level. So I immediately fell back on some losing behavior. I started making excuses immediately. Excuses for, my grip tape, excuses of why I didn't play well because I didn't sleep well, excuses because of minor injuries that really weren't a factor. Even excuses of elements that both of the players had. If it was hot, we both were playing in 95 degrees. Like, it wasn't like there was an advantage. Oh, but they were from Florida, so they're used to it. And man, it was just a lot of really loser type behavior. And then the blame game starts, right? Where I blame the equipment, I blamed the coach, I blamed the racket got a lot of brood of that, like and shoes, and I mean, you name it. It was really heavily loser behavior. And I never really got through that till I was probably about 18 years old, when finally a coach helped me take the responsibility that it was on me. And I had to take responsibility for my actions, which was lack of preparedness. Experience was certainly a factor. And all these things are going on. And I had to own the fact that I just wasn't up to their standards yet. And if I was going to do something about that, I'd have to look deep and own the data, statistics, because there's tons of stats in tennis. There's tons of stats in sports. There's tons of stats in organizations. One of the stats that I had to look very hard at was I was making over 75% of my unforced errors on my forehand side. So my backhand was much more consistent, much stronger. But yet, in between these matches, I wasn't going out and working harder on my forehand. And conversely, here was a guy who actually did that. A guy named Andre Agassi, who, when we knew him as a young man in juniors, when he was just 12, 14 years old, he had this lethal backhand that everybody like hit away from because it was so formidable. And then he went away for a year and went down to Balotelli's academy and trained and trained and trained. And apparently they tied up his left arm and he's going to hit forehands all day until he can hit this thing as good as anybody. And if everyone, when people think back on Andre Agassi's pro career, it was this massive forehand, this just huge forehand, long hair flowing, and a forehand that kills. And such a strength that he turned his weakness into absolute superpower, yet he still kept his other strengths strong, which definitely took him to that next level. And as I look back on that, man, here I am not taking ownership of my failure. And, as John kind of said in his talk and his motivational talk on this, it was, hey, you know, if you're not going to own your failure, then how can you own your success? So I had to really think hard about my effort, my preparation, how I was doing that. I was reminded that this week by someone very close to me, just that, hey, these are things I'm not doing well and I'm failing. And I had to own that failure. And that was not comfortable for me. I wanted to be defensive. I wanted to point to all the reasons why that's happening, why it's not going well. And I could think of plenty. But at the end of the day, I'm the only one who's going to change that. So as a leader in your organization, I'm going to ask you to, really dive into how can you do this well? And when you have your team members out there, how will this show out with teams? You want great team members. The first and foremost thing, we have to nip losing behaviors out, because losing behaviors are definitely not someone taking ownership. Because when they start making excuses, they're not taking the ownership that they could have done something about it. When they blame something, someone else, anything, man, that's a total wedge in the team that becomes a total gap of what we're trying to accomplish as a team. And again, it's not taking ownership. The third big loser behavior is people quit when it gets hard. Like, wow, this is not what I signed on for. I didn't know it was going to get this hard. I quit. I don't want to do this job anymore. I don't want to take this commute. I don't want to have to work and do something differently and face the harsh realities that what I'm doing right now is not working. And we have to do that every day in our organization. There's salespeople that come every day and they got a 6-step sales process and they never make it past step 4. Step 1, 2, 3, like a breeze. I'm just rolling through this and then boom. Step 4 hit, the wall goes up. No, thanks, but no thanks. I'm out of here. What? But we're not looking at the data. Why are we losing? What's happening? We're shown data that we're losing in this 4th step. Are we going back, figuring out, is this a good step? Am I doing it right? Am I prepared for this step? What could I be doing better? All those questions that we take ownership, this is not working for us, is so critical. And the last and 4th step after excuses, blame, and quitting is ignoring the data. And I see a lot of people that do this, and I call it the ostrich method. Here we have data that says we're losing. I've seen coaches do this that says, hey, here's the scoreboard, which is obviously an easy indicator of winning and losing, right? And we are down 40-2 at halftime in our basketball game. And the coach goes, hey, looking great. Everything's good. Keep on working hard and get her done. You can do it. We're down 38 points. We've only scored 2. We can't do it. It's a total lie. It's a falsity that no one's going to get behind. So we've lost authenticity in this. We've lost trust. All these things are going on with these leaders that are trying to ignore that data. And I appreciate positive attitudes. I appreciate encouragement. But when something has to change, it has to change. And typically, most people around know, hey, something has to change. This is not going on. I don't like losing. We've lost 6 in a row, and we can point to losing those 6 games the exact same way. Yet we never spend the practice in between these games working on that area that we're failing. And that is happening in organizations. It's happening in companies. We are holding on to what's worked 15 years ago, and we just sure hope it still works today, even though all indicators show it's not. Uh, it is probably one of the biggest challenges of former successful entities and companies that all of a sudden things change drastically in the environment, in the product, in the equipment, in the marketing, in the sales process, in the distribution channel, you name it, something significantly changes and you can't do business. You can't operate your organization the same way you did before. Yet, everybody ignores that data, or at least the leaders do, and we keep trying to do the same way and expect that great result that happened in the past. It's bonkers, and hope is not a strategy. We hope it gets better. That's not a strategy. We actually have to look at the data, and good organizations mine the data, mine it accurately, and then use the data for their benefit. Is the data the only thing and the only indicator? I think it is not. But we can glean a lot of information from it. We can put together a holistic story based on a lot of different factors and data when it comes around our organizations and our teams. And we create that. So I'm going to leave you today, this great Labor Day weekend. So excited for a holiday and taking many of the kids are off school today and Monday off, long weekend, a lot of people traveling. To help you take a listen and remember on your teams and your organizations, one is look for those 4 losing behaviors. You want winners on your team. You want to be a winner also. So making excuses, blaming others or things, giving up, quitting, or just ignoring the fact that we're losing. Those 4 big things are so critical. And lastly, take ownership of your failure, because when you own your success and you've earned your way out of that failure, you've adapted and overcome it, you want to take ownership in that success too. And the only way it's going to come is from us realizing, hey, something has to change. And the only factor I get to change is me. And I'm going to model that change maybe for a lot of other people. And I'm also going to model the fact that I'm not going to show up in loser behavior. And I'm going to nip loser behavior in the bud as soon as it starts happening. I won't accept that in organizations I'm involved with because we got to be solution oriented. There's a lot of different ways to get back to the strategy and proactive and encouragement of what we can do right and change things, adapt, and overcome. But those four qualities will bring others into an abyss. It'll detract from your efficiency, ultimately drain your productivity levels, and put you back. So, this weekend, take a look and figure out how you might do that coming back on Tuesday into your organization, what that might look like for you. Build a system, a game plan around how you might do that because you don't need to be harsh about it. And we do have to have a way to address it and do it as a team, not just one individual, but all of us. So I encourage you to find that way this weekend and enact it next week as you move in, as winners always find a way. Thanks for joining me, Coach Trent Clark, CEO of Athletic Influencer Marketing and Leadershipity. And I'm so excited about all the things that are coming up this fall. Look for us. We are on social, Leadershipity, or AIM for NIL. That is AIM number 4 NIL, AIM for NIL. You can find me on all those social channels and the networks of all your majors, and at Trent M. Clark, Leadershipity, or AIM for NIL. And so excited. DM me, message me, email me, Trent at leadershipity.com or Trent at AIM for NIL. And I look forward to catching up with you and speaking then. Enjoy a great holiday weekend.